The Mayflower Compact was a document that was signed on board the Mayflower as she was riding an anchor off Provincetown immediately after they arrived. And it was really rather resembled a kind of a borough charter. In England at the time, every town and borough had a charter which set out its rights, its privileges, and its mode of government. And that's pretty much what the Mayflower Compact was. It was like an American version, transplanted American version of an English borough charter. And the reason they signed it was really this. It was because there was a degree of dissension on board. The problem was, because they'd gone off course, because they'd arrived in Massachusetts rather than New York, they had a legal difficulty. They had been granted a patent by the Virginia Company to settle in what were known as the northern parts of Virginia. Unfortunately, because they'd drifted off course, they actually weren't there. They were in an area that was supervised by a different English body called the Council for New England. So they didn't really have a legal right from an English point of view to settle in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And this caused a degree of dissent and disharmony and conflict on board the ship, because some people were arguing, well, we shouldn't really stay here. We said we should try and sail off to where we were originally supposed to be, which is further south. Now, that really wasn't practical. So what they did was they tried to heal all the disagreements by getting everybody on board, all the adult males that is, to sign this document, which was a kind of a legal charter of their own, setting up the way they would govern the colony, the rights and privileges of each individual members of the colony, and establishing a kind of a form of government. And that's what it was. And what they did was, later on, they actually published that document. They actually sent it back to England. That document was published as part of a book that they produced in England in 1622 about their adventures. And what it described it as, the book described the Mayflower Compact as an association and agreement that we should combine together in one body and to submit to such governments and governors as we should by common consent agree to make and choose. And that was signed by 42 men, 42 out of the 47 adult males on the ship. So everybody got together and agreed on this. And that's really why it came to be seen in America later on as being the basis for kind of American Republican self-government. Now, that view of the Mayflower Compact started to become current in America round about 1780. And you can see why that should be, because this was during and after the Revolutionary War. America was about to create its own constitution, which of course came into being in 1787. And there were people who started to argue that you should see the Mayflower Compact as being a kind of forerunner of the later American Constitution. Now, that's really it's a kind of a dubious kind of argument, actually, because there isn't really any direct lineal connection between the Mayflower Compact and the American Constitution. However, even so, the Mayflower Compact is still a very interesting document. Now, I said it was like a borough charter, an English borough charter, but actually it was much more radical and democratic than the English borough charter because of this phenomenon, the fact that 42 adult males signed it. English borough charters tend to be kind of quite narrow documents, and the people who wrote them and drew them up were really an oligarchy, a relatively small number of powerful people within each borough or town. Mayflower Compact was very different. The Mayflower Compact was something which was put together and signed by all the adult males on board the ship, or all the adult males who were regarded as being fit to sign it. So it was much more of a kind of a radical democratic thing, and it certainly was seen by that in the Plymouth colony itself. Later on, during the English Civil War back home in England, they actually rewrote the Mayflower Charter and they deleted the various references of loyalty to the Crown, for example. They regarded the Mayflower Charter, the Mayflower Compact, as their really basis of their kind of form of democratic self-government. So it was kind of a radical document, not necessarily for the reasons that Americans think it is, but from an English point of view, it's a radical document because it was much more radical than anything you would have seen in England at the time.